Coming up on the show, we're reflecting on the lasting legacy of John Lewis, 5 years since the civil rights icon and congressman passed away. We're also going to examine how tariffs and inflation are putting the pressure on back-to-school budgets as families brace for those prices rising. And Metro Atlanta gardeners are being urged to plant a row and feed hungry neighbors. We'll talk about it all coming up. This is The Take. Let's get it. Hello and welcome. I'm Chesley McNeil. This is The Take, where we go above and beyond the headlines and we look at the why and how stories are impacting you and your community. We invite the experts in to share their take on today's top stories, and we try to have just a little bit of fun as well.
We are tired. We are tired of being beaten by policemen. We're tired of seeing our people locked up in jail over and over again. And then you holler, be patient. How long can we be patient? We want our freedom, and we want it now.
Today marks 5 years since the passing of civil rights icon and former Georgia Congressman John Lewis. In this hour, we're going to be taking time to reflect on Lewis's life and legacy, as well as how his message of good trouble is still being felt today. Here now with us to help us do that reflection is Nicole Moore. She's the Director of Education for the National Center of Civil and Human Rights. Nicole, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. All right, let's get started with the overall. How inspirational is John Lewis, his journey when it comes to him being a civil rights leader, civil rights icon, and also a member of Congress?
I respectfully say he is that guy. Like, his trajectory, starting as a young person, really getting involved, seeing what was happening to his family and Black folks in Alabama at a young age, to getting with SNCC while he was at Fisk University, to being the chairman of Fisk, to going on to Congress. His life was one where he didn't stop the work. He knew his purpose and he led with intention and purpose. And for me, it's really understanding that you can get into this work for a little bit, but there's most people who make this their life. And he made sure that this wasn't just about him. This just wasn't about Black people. This was about all people treated unfairly, treated with injustice. He wanted to make sure that people got what they deserved. They deserved human dignity. They deserved their rights. And he fought till the day he died to make sure that we had that.
In it for a long time. We know the clip we just played was him at the March on Washington. He was the youngest speaker that day, just 23 years old. What set him apart from other young activists of his time?
I don't think things really set him apart from other young activists of his time. I think what we saw was just a level of commitment with him being the chair of SNCC at that time and being that voice on the March on Washington. Him representing the organization was him representing young people across the world. And for me, it's really understanding that when we think about the civil rights movement, a lot of people, especially students, they think about the adults, but what they're not seeing are the student leaders. And those were the ones really, really pushing for change because their parents often couldn't do it because they were facing job loss. But these young people who were willing to be arrested, who were willing to risk it all, those were the ones that could really impact and influence change.
We understand that he was influenced by Dr. Martin Luther King. Another young at the time as well. Was he really the inspiration behind what he was trying to do?
Well, I think the story is he heard Dr. King on the radio one time. He was in Troy and he was like, who is this man? I need to write to him. I need to get connected to what he's doing. And so I think just seeing the influence of somebody really doing this work and having a voice and having the audience that encouraged him to say, how can I get involved and how can I do this? And he writes to Dr. King a few times. They meet quite a few times. And so they start to build this relationship. But I think it was him hearing, there's somebody that's doing this. I can also do this work, that really helps move him forward.
We got to talk about good trouble.
Yes.
and the nonviolence practices that these guys were into. Talk to me about it. Tell us more about this good trouble.
So the good trouble is you want to be in trouble. You want to be in trouble that is right and just and is justice driven. You're not getting in trouble for the sake of it. You are not engaging in violence. But that doesn't mean that violence won't be engaged upon you. John Lewis was beaten multiple times. He was beaten in Rock Hill. He was beaten in Selma. And so this wasn't when people think about nonviolence, I think a lot of times they think, oh, well, nothing's going to happen to me. No. you have to be the one who is saying, I know that something's going to happen to me, but I won't react because my trouble is for the sake of others to have what is rightfully theirs. That good trouble is that righteous trouble, that cause for I can do this because I know that this is the right thing to do, that civil disobedience is my calling, and that at the end of the day, I will create a positive change. It's all about positive change.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And that good trouble has carried on with a lot of other people. People really relate to that, which has been very good. He was elected into the U.S. House in 1986 and served until his death. He carried the torch of civil rights. Or how did he carry the torch of civil rights into his work in Congress? Talk to us about that.
He kept at it. Like, again, like I say, respectfully, he was just that guy. He didn't get into Congress and say, I'm here, I'm good. I'll fight a little bit of the good fight, but not much. No, he kept that same passion that he had as a student leader, as a movement leader. He brought that to Congress. I mean, he was doing sit-ins in 2016. So this lets you know that the things that he learned earlier in his life, that was always a part of him. And that change, that fight, that desire for our voting rights, for anti-lynching bills, for all of the things that he lived through, he made sure that just because he got to Congress, he wasn't going to stop. And as the center sits in the district that he represented, it's great for us to be able to tell that story and to honor his legacy in that way and to continue the fight, to educate people about their rights, to continue to educate about voting and about civil rights and to talk about anti-lynching so that people really understand that this man lived, breathed, and died for what he believed in. We have to keep that legacy going.
Absolutely. Nicole Moore, thanks so much for joining us this morning. Thanks so much for your insight.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, take care. All right, folks, it's going to be a hot one out there today. Temperature's getting up to about 93 degrees, but when you factor in the humidity with that, it's going to make it feel like the upper 90s. Hot, to say the least. 30% chance that we could see an isolated shower or two pop up. That means only a few of us will see it or get some relief from that heat. We're going to hold on to that chance each and every afternoon for an isolated or scattered shower or thunderstorm to pop up in the area. Tomorrow, 40% chance, goes back down to a 30% chance for Saturday, Sunday. But the temperature keeps rising on us a little bit there. 95 on Friday and Saturday. We'll do the mid-90s again as we start the work week next week. In fact, going up through the week, up to 96 by the time we get to next Wednesday with only a 20% chance for that rain to be around. Don't go anywhere. We got much more show for you coming up after the break. This is The Take. We're back right after this. Welcome back to the show. In a rare break with President Trump, some Republican lawmakers are now calling for the files of Jeffrey Epstein's sex trafficking investigation to be released. Joining us now is NBC Washington correspondent Alice Barr. And Alice, this really has the White House fired up here a little bit and the president lashing out at some of his supporters.
Yeah, this is an unusual moment right now where we're seeing kind of a revolt within the MAGA movement, and it's a rare divide. President Trump has been urging his supporters to move on from the investigation into sex offender Jeffrey Epstein, but now he's blasting some in his base, and that's only drawing attention to what's going on here. In answering reporters' questions just yesterday, he was clearly increasingly frustrated with some of his own supporters, saying that he thinks this is all a big hoax that he claims was perpetuated by Democrats. And he said, quote, some stupid Republicans and foolish Republicans fall into the net. He also, in a lengthy post on social media, disavowed supporters that he called weaklings for buying into what he terms BS. But it's important to note that while the president is blaming Democrats, right-wing influencers and even some members of now his own administration have been among the loudest voices perpetuating these conspiracy theories, arguing that they believe Epstein, who was charged and died by suicide in jail during the first Trump term, did not, in fact, kill himself, and that he left an incriminating client list. But just last week, there was this memo that came out from the Justice Department, the FBI, contradicting all of that and saying that they're not going to release any more evidence in this case. That has brought all of the heat on Attorney General Pam Bondi initially, but some of it is now directed squarely at President Trump himself.
Yeah. You spoke about the conspiracy theories in the Justice Department. Have they said anything definitive about why they're choosing not to dig into these documents?
So it's a huge case file that we know contains a lot of very sensitive information related to victims, as well as any potential perpetrators outside of Epstein. So, a lot of people have said you can't just make documentation public that contains the names of underage victims, not just victims, but underage victims, and that there may also be, people included in the files who were never able to be prosecuted, and that the idea of making evidence public that never led to a prosecution is not, standard fare. That's not normally done. So while there could be a whole bunch of names in there, who knows who could be involved in this, they're not. Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, has said that she has only released credible information to this point, and that there's nothing left in there that's credible, that's prosecutable, that then rises to the level of being made public.
Yeah, you got some Congress members trying to get specific questions about this case. What can you tell us about that?
Right. So they've gotten pretty specific with wanting Attorney General Pam Bondi to answer their questions, wanting her to come to Capitol Hill and answer their questions. And one lawmaker's even suggesting that a special counsel should be appointed to investigate the investigation. That's conceivably something President Trump could do to kind of throw a bone to the base that's not backing off of this. And then some Republican lawmakers are also calling on Ghislaine Maxwell to testify. She was Epstein's associate, who was also convicted of sex trafficking and of recruiting underage girls for Epstein to abuse. She is serving a 20-year prison sentence. She is appealing that sentence. And so the idea of her coming to testify on Capitol Hill before Congress, before her appeal plays out, probably unlikely to see that happening right now.
Got it. Alice Barr, thank you so much for joining us, and thanks for your insight. All right, coming up on the show, we're going to talk to Congresswoman Nikema Williams and get her perspective on the legacy of John Williams. This is The Take, folks, on 11Alive Plus and the ATL. We're back right after this. It's been 6 months since Georgia and the nation paid final farewell to Jimmy Carter. The former president died in late December at the age of 100. And after days of tributes here in Atlanta and Washington, D.C., Carter was laid to rest next to his wife near his home in Plains. Now his burial site has been open to visitors. Here with more on that is Jennifer Hopkins. She's the lead education ranger with the Jimmy Carter National Historical Park in Plains. Welcome to the show, Jennifer.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being with us. Let's start with this. Jimmy and Rosalind Clark has always called Plains their home. How does this town itself help tell the story to the visitors, folks who are coming to pay respects to the site?
Yeah. Here at Jimmy Carter National Historical Park and Plains, Georgia, we're really committed to sharing the Carter legacy. So we love to talk about not only his time as president of the United States, but as him and Miss Rosalind as a couple and their global impact. Visitors who come to Plains really get the small town feel that really built this power couple, essentially, and they can see why they wanted to come back in their post-presidency years and spend their time here amongst their global travels.
Yeah. Talk to me about the site itself. Walk me through what visitors will experience when they come to pay their respects.
Right, so the Carter Gardens is the newest publicly open feature of Jimmy Carter National Historical Park, which is also comprised of Plains High School, which is where the Carters went to school, the Boyhood Farm, where Jimmy Carter grew up, the historic Plains Depot, which is the campaign headquarters for his 1976 campaign, and the Carter Gardens, which is essentially their front yard and final resting place for them. So as visitors come to the site, they'll be able to view the memorial gardens, which were personally designed by Mr. and Mrs. Carter themselves, a beautiful pond that was built by Jimmy Carter and his brother Billy, and then just the grounds that the Carters enjoyed family and friends with. And then their memorial, so their grave sites, which are a simplistic grave site, which I think is a great tribute to their legacy.
Yeah. Why was it so important for the Carters to be their final resting place be here in Plains, and how does that reflect their values?
Plains is their home, and they've invested so much in their hometown, and I think it's a way to say thank you and to give back. Carter's campaign in 1976 was groundbreaking in that it was a grassroots campaign. They had people, family, friends from Plains go throughout all 50 states campaigning for him door to door. And so I think this is their way of saying thank you for getting us to where we were and for helping us build this life together. And so now they want to bring people in to also get that little taste of Plains and that hometown feel.
Yeah. Finally, let us know how people can prepare for a visit.
Well, right now it's July in Georgia, so definitely bring a gnat swatter. We are below the gnat line and water. But again, just we love, especially as park rangers, we love hearing any memories that you have, whether Carter was the first president that you voted for, or you have some memory of coming down during the peanut parade and meeting Mr. and Mrs. Carter. But just being able to come and visit. There's 2 spaces to the grounds. We have a reflective, contemplative space where you can come, read a book, enjoy some quiet time. But then we also have a recreational area where you can bring your pets on leash, picnic with family, and again, just enjoy time outdoors.
Very, very nice. Jennifer Hopkins, thanks so much for joining us. Really appreciate you being on today.
Thank you.
All right, folks, don't go anywhere. We got much more for you coming up after the break.
You cannot stand by. You cannot sit down. You got to stand up, speak out, and get in the way. Make some noise.
It's that good trouble right there. When John Lewis died in 2020, it left his spot on that November ballot vacant. It was filled by Nikema Williams, who was at the time stirring as state Senate. She would go on to win in the general election, and now she is joining us. Congresswoman Williams, welcome to the show.
Good morning.
So happy that you're with us this morning. Listen, start off with your personal reflection on John Lewis and what kind of leader he was.
You know, Congressman Lewis was that person. People tell you you should never meet your heroes because you might be disappointed, but he was everything that you thought he would be. I had an opportunity to know him personally and learn from him and just take it all in before even realizing that I would ever have the opportunity to serve in the seat that he served this district in this country for over 30 years. So it is the honor of my life to serve this district, to be able to just take part of what he taught me and to give it back to so many people, especially in these very trying times. People will ask me what it's like to serve in the seat from John Lewis and what does good trouble mean to me. And with everything going on right now, and I think about some of the quotes that he left us with. A lot of people use the good trouble, necessary trouble, but the one that really, really stands out to me is he said, let us not get lost in a sea of despair. Let us be hopeful, be optimistic. He was always joyful. He was always optimistic. And he said, because our struggle is not the struggle of a day, a week, or a month. Our struggle is the struggle of a lifetime. So each generation has an obligation to do its part. And I think that's what I hold closely, because it's easy to get caught up in everything happening and feel like you're not doing enough or feel like you want to give up. But you know that this struggle is not for one day. And so you keep going and you stay focused. And so I hold on to that daily.
Yeah. You mentioned 30 years that he served in that seat. And you mentioned the quote that you like or that carries you. Is that what carries you in your daily work with Congress?
Absolutely, because Chelsea, I will tell you, it is trying up here in Washington. I'm in D.C. right now. We thought that we're going to be leaving today, so I won't be seeing the good people of Georgia's fighting fifth back home today because we have votes until 7:30 tonight, and Congress is very unpredictable. And so in a time when so many things are not certain and unpredictable, it's good to hold on to those things that you know. And I know that the things that Congressman Lewis went through to give me the opportunity to serve in this body as a Black woman from the South, I am literally living my ancestors' wildest dreams, and it's because of the sacrifices that Congressman Lewis made over 60 years ago on the Edmund Pettus Bridge, so that I would have the right to vote, so that you would have the right to be on TV in Atlanta, Georgia. Imagine that in the South. And this is all because Congressman Lewis sacrificed for us. And so we have an obligation to keep these doors open for the next generation.
Absolutely. All right, let's talk about something close to your heart. We're talking about voting rights. You co-sponsored the John Lewis Voting Rights Act, Achievement Act. How does that legislation capture what he stood for, and how do you see that impacting voters here in Atlanta and nationwide?
So I have long said that when you're looking at voting rights, we should not be piecemealing it state by state by state. And as a member of Congress, I have the opportunity to introduce legislation that impacts the entire country, because it shouldn't be whether you live in Georgia or Alabama or California what your right to vote is. It should be standardized across the board. And that's all that we're looking for. We want fairness across the board, regardless of where you live. Everybody should have equal access to the ballot box. I tell the story that my son, if he's in Atlanta and goes to McDonald's, he knows that if he orders a Happy Meal, he's going to get a toy, he's going to get his chicken nuggets, a soda, and fries across the board. But if he goes to Paris, he's going to get the same thing, a toy, chicken nuggets, and his French fries and a Coke. But voting rights is piecemeal. Depending on where you are, we want standardized access to the ballot across the board. Congressman Lewis fought for equal access to the ballot box for all people, and we're still fighting for that 60 years from that date. And so there's more work to be done, but I'm excited to be the representative from Georgia's fighting 5th Congressional District, and I'm here to get the work done.
Yeah. Speaking of that, still fighting, what do you believe is the next crucial fight in the struggle for civil and human rights?
Well, this is absolutely right now our civil rights moment. When we look at everything going on with our immigrant community, when you look at what is happening with Medicaid and SNAP benefits and what we're facing here, we have an obligation to speak out for the least of these. And this is our opportunity to stand up and find our way to get in the way. It's not going to look exactly the same as it did with Congressman Lewis, and everybody doesn't have to step in at the same time, but this is our civil rights movement, and it's our obligation to find a way to get in the way and to speak up for those most marginalized, speak up for people being disappeared by our federal government, speak up for people, students, children who are losing food. We have after-school programs that are being cut right here in Georgia. I have a 9-year-old son, so I understand the importance of making sure that our young people have somewhere to go when their parents are still at work. Atlanta Public Schools, they get out at 2:45. I don't know how many jobs in Atlanta let their parents off at 2:45 to take care of their kids. So what is happening with our after-school programming? We have an obligation to find a way to get in the way, because this is our civil rights movement when we're rolling back the rights of so many people, the Department of Education being dismantled, and that gives so many people opportunities, Pell Grants being cut. This is a rollback in our civil rights, and we've got to speak up. If not now, then when?
All right, Congresswoman Nikema Williams, thanks so much for joining us. We hope you make it back here safely. We were waiting for you. We'll leave the light on for you.
Thank you.
All right, take care. All right, folks, when we come back, we're going to talk about what effect tariffs have on school supplies. That's coming up right after the break. You're watching The Take. Getting close to back to school time, and back to school always means back to the stores for school supplies. And while last year the concern may have been on inflation, this year the talk is about tariffs. 11Alive News Investigates have been tracking prices since April, all the way up since the first tariffs were put into place. Senior investigator Rebecca Lindstrom joins us now with a look at the impact on those prices. And Rebecca, could we just let parents know they should be hit hard? Is that the case?
I don't know, but I mean, I always think this is a super exciting time of year. I've always enjoyed that going, back to school shopping. And I can say, if you were not overly picky, then no, this does not have to be a big hit to your wallet. If you're willing to shop the sales and look around, you should do okay. But that does not mean that prices have not gone up. We've been tracking more than 100 everyday household items from countries around the world, because we know that the rates are different with different countries. And these products range from food to home goods and, yes, a few back-to-school items. And so far, those pencils and scissors, paper, those have stayed the same, at least the products that we've been tracking. And many stores, well, they're still having sales to get you to come inside. They are willing to lose a few cents on those basics in hopes you will buy a shirt or shoes, products where it's harder to make a, price comparison.
So what kind of products have gone up?
Yeah, because we have found some. About 23% of the products that we have been tracking have gone up. Here's a few examples. A roll of Reynolds wrap, now up 30 cents. That's probably tied to the tariffs on imported aluminum. Dorm room essentials, if you're going to be shopping for, that college kid that's going away. Well, those essentials like towels and sheets, they have definitely jumped. We've seen that jump be anywhere from $1 to $3. And then there's a bookshelf that I've been tracking, one of those take the hex screw and assemble it and put it together. That has jumped $45. Wow. That's one of the biggest jumps that we've seen. And Matt Priest, president and CEO of the Footwear Distributors and Retailers of America, tells 11Alive News investigates that brands and retailers, well, they're doing their best to protect consumers from these price hikes, while the companies still find ways to be economically viable.
The question comes down to how much can the retailer and the brand shield the consumer from that? How much front loading happened in the supply chain to get product here before those duties took effect? And then inevitably, how much will prices go up on families?
Priest says 25% of shoes sold in the U.S. are made or pass through Vietnam, which agreed to a 20 to 40% tariff. This isn't a product now that we have specifically been tracking because there are so many variables, and there's always a new shoe coming out, making those apples to apples comparisons hard, which was really kind of important. We wanted to stay fair with the products that we specifically were tracking. But Priest says he is tracking it, and prices have gone up, and he expects them to rise even further in the next few months. So again, that is where checking those sales, or maybe you don't need a specific brand, you're willing to choose an off-brand, you can still save some money and keep that price in line with what you used to be paying.
So Rebecca, if we haven't felt it so far, does that mean we won't feel it at all?
A lot of this boils down to flexibility, as I've been talking about. We've definitely seen some coffee products jump in price. But again, if you're willing to drink a bean from a country with a lower tariff, then you can save money, or maybe pick a different pair of shoes like we were mentioning. Companies themselves all have different strategies on how they're trying to navigate this. So maybe that one specific shoe at store A is still going to be that original price at store B. So because the stagger has been different in these tariffs, it's really given retailers a little bit more time to think, to get extra inventory in ahead of time. And so that's why I think we're really just going to kind of see that slow roll. But the reality is these prices, they are going up.
All right. Rebecca, thanks so much. Really appreciate your insight on this. And yeah, I'll be talking to you as we get closer to Christmas, because that's when I'm going to start getting in. All right. Thanks so much. Appreciate it. All right. You can see Rebecca and Liza Lucas' full investigation tonight on 11 Live News at 11 right here on 11 Live Plus. And if you have a tip that you want our team to investigate, all you have to do is call us at 404-873-9111. Again, that's 404-873-9111, or email us at investigates@11alive.com. All right, we are looking at Midtown. You can see those clouds overhead. Looks a little ominous, doesn't it? You know, it could rain at any time, but a little more likely once we get into the afternoon heating. And pretty sticky on the outside right now. We'll see those temperatures begin to climb. It's going to be a hot one out there again today. Again, the showers are a little bit more likely once we get into the afternoon, but not everyone gets wet. It's only a 20 to 30% chance for this afternoon, and so we'll continue to monitor things. But for now, at least we're dry. We have seen some showers up to the far north in the North Georgia mountains so far, but we'll see if that begins to spread. Let's bring in meteorologist Ryan Willis, who is at the National Weather Service in Peachtree City. Ryan, welcome to the show, man.
Hey, good morning. How are you?
All right, look, all we've been talking about is heat, heat, heat. Can you tell us when we're going to see some relief, or is it more just heat, heat, heat?
Yeah, unfortunately, not a whole lot in the way of relief. In fact, probably getting a little hotter over the next few days across the area. So if you don't like the heat, we don't have a whole lot of good news for you.
What can people do to mitigate heat illness during these times that we're experiencing?
Yeah, obviously, you know, if you can spend time indoors in the air-conditioned environment, that's going to be your best way to mitigate the heat. But if you do work outdoors, it's important to stay hydrated, to take frequent breaks, especially during the peak heating of the afternoon and evening hours. If you can move into a shaded area or inside where there's AC for a while, That's all very helpful. Obviously, check on any vulnerable neighbors, some elderly neighbors or family that may not have functioning AC or an air-conditioned area. So all of that will be important over the coming days with this heat that will really just be sticking with us.
Yeah, and it seems like, we're just getting started. I know we average about 47, 90-degree days here in Atlanta. And I know the record was like 90-something days. We're not on that kind of track, are we, do you think?
It's tough to say at this point. It really will depend on if we continue getting the 90-degree days late into the summer, into the early part of the fall, which is really what pushes us over the top on those years. But certainly here for the remainder of July, it does look like we'll have pretty much every day into the 90s.
And those 90s for us will last into September at times?
Usually into September, we're still getting a number of 90-degree days. Hopefully by then we start trending down to more days, in the 80s and even 70s by the latter part of the month. But we can get 90s sticking around through the most of the month.
We have been looking down in the Gulf. There's an area of low pressure down there that the National Hurricane Center is saying that it had a 40% chance, now down to a 30% chance. Is that likely not to form into anything as it moves toward Louisiana?
Yeah, right now it's looking pretty unlikely that it will get a whole lot of organization as it's getting close to the Louisiana coastline. Still a low chance, but regardless of any organization from here, it looks like the primary effect is going to be some heavy rain, especially over in South Louisiana, that area over the next couple of days.
No impacts for us from this?
No real direct impacts for us. We're really just under a persistent ridge, so hot temperatures, maybe some isolated to scattered afternoon storms, if you're lucky.
If you're lucky, that's right. Meteorologist Ryan Willis, thanks so much for joining us. Really appreciate your insight.
All right, you're welcome.
All right, take care. Coca-Cola could be changing some of its ingredients. We're going to talk about that coming up. Stay right there. This is The Take. We're back right after this. Is Atlanta-based Coca-Cola putting sugar back into its popular carbonated beverage? CNN's Maribel Aber joins us now from the NASDAQ market site in New York City. Good morning to you, Maribel. This all came to light thanks to a social media post from the president.
It did. Good morning, Chesley. It's just better. That's what President Trump said in that social media post about Coca-Cola made with cane sugar. So Trump yesterday said Coca-Cola had agreed to use cane sugar in its drinks in the U.S. Trump had said he had been speaking to the company about switching to the sugar, and it agreed with his idea. Now, at the moment, Coca-Cola has not confirmed a change, only saying it will have details on its new offering soon. A spokesperson said, quote, "We appreciate President Trump's enthusiasm for our iconic Coca-Cola brand, a Coke that's produced for the U.S. market. It's usually sweetened with corn syrup, but the company does use cane sugar in other countries, including Mexico and some parts of Europe." So, Chesley, there is a fundamental difference in taste between the real glass and the real cane sugar. It just hits different.
Yeah. You get a chance to do it. You have a Coca-Cola factory here, and it does serve some with the cane sugar. It does taste different. You're absolutely right. More from the White House. We need more clarification on this. Is Fed Chair Jerome Powell close to being fired?
Okay, a lot of talk about this yesterday, Chesley, but President Trump denied he had plans to fire Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell. The denial came just hours after media reports said Trump told some Republican lawmakers he did plan to fire Powell. Trump said while he didn't rule out anything, he thought it was, quote, highly unlikely that Powell would be let go. Now, the president and some in his administration have been attacking the Fed chair for not lowering interest rates. Powell has stressed the need for the Fed to be patient as it gauges the impact of Trump's tariffs on the economy and job market. So lots to watch there, Chesley.
All right. Let's talk about the cost of health care. It keeps rising, of course, and now it looks like workers could face higher deductibles and out-of-pocket costs next year.
Chesley, employers plan to shift more of the cost for health care to workers next year. This is according to a survey, and it comes from Human Resources firm Mercer. A little more than half of those surveyed plan to increase their employees' share of the cost for health care. That could be from higher deductibles, as you mentioned, for workers, or an increase to the annual out-of-pocket maximums on health plans. Now, health care costs are expected to rise for employers next year. One area of concern are anti-obesity drugs, which are surging in popularity, but also very expensive. Chesley, check this out. Nearly 2/3 of companies with 20,000 or more workers provided coverage for the drugs in 2024. And then 44% of employers with 500 or more workers provided coverage for those anti-obesity drugs as well. Very popular, but very expensive, Chesley.
All right. Finally, 3 crypto regulation bills working their way through the Capitol Hill right now, but it hasn't been easy.
Quite a day for these bills yesterday, but legislation on regulations for cryptocurrency are moving forward in the House. This after a day of negotiations with some House Republicans opposed to the measures. So the trio of bills are supported by President Trump and the cryptocurrency industry. The legislation was tied up yesterday in a battle of changes made to appease a group of lawmakers opposed to the measures. It was this marathon to get the bills moved along. The legislation was tied up for 10 hours before it finally moved forward. That set the record for the longest open vote in modern House history. The previous record was set earlier this month. Now, a final vote on passing one of the bills could come as early as today. And Chesley, a vote today could mean big implications for crypto stocks and the broader market. Wall Street will be watching to see if regulations clear a major hurdle. Taking a step back, what's going on here, Chesley? Okay, the need for creating a regulatory framework for crypto firms. It's muddy, if you will. And while we don't have a crystal ball, the one thing we do know is this: the markets don't like uncertainty. So we'll be watching all this very closely, Chesley.
And you hit it right there on the head, right there. All that uncertainty, yeah, which makes me go, I don't know. I just don't
Hold
know.
on.
Right, absolutely. Maribel, thanks so much for joining us. Really appreciate it. All right, folks. A local food pantry or local food pantries are looking for help from area gardeners. We're going to talk about that coming up right after this. Don't go anywhere. Well, it's a simple idea with big impacts. Yeah, Metro Atlanta gardeners are being asked to try to turn a little extra summer produce into fresh donations for local food pantries. Here to explain more is Kathleen Moriarty with the Peachtree Hills Community Garden. Kathleen, welcome to the show, first of all.
Thank you. Good morning.
Absolutely. For those of us who are unfamiliar with what exactly is the Plant a Row for the Hungry, and how does it work right here in Metro Atlanta?
Plant a Row for the Hungry is a program that started in Alaska, back in the late 1980s, and where a broadcaster or a journalist encouraged gardeners, food growers of all sorts, to plant an extra row or an extra plant to donate to food pantries to feed the hungry, and obviously caught on. And it became established in Atlanta in the around 1994, 95, I believe. And it's just that. It's asking people who grow food to plant a row or even a plant specifically to donate to food pantries to feed people who would not otherwise have access to fresh, locally grown vegetables.
And how has it been going so far?
Well, in our community garden, we've participated in the Plant of the Row Hungry program for 15 years. Our garden was started in 2008, and in 2010, we started the Plant a Row program. So we have donated around 3,370 pounds of produce over the 15 years. We average about 250 pounds of produce a year.
Wow.
To food pantries.
Wow. And so you've seen it grow throughout the years, right?
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah. More people getting involved with this.
We try to get more people involved all the time.
Yeah. We've been hearing about urban agriculture in Atlanta. How does that at Plant a Row play into the bigger food system conversation?
Well, there's an organization called Foodwell Alliance, which is a spinoff basically of the Atlanta Community Food Bank. And their mission is to encourage community gardening and urban farming for the purpose of increasing donations through a Plant a Row from the Hungry program. So they're not saying everything you grow should go to a food pantry, but that you designate specific plants or specific areas of your garden for donations to food pantries. And that's really Foodwell Alliance's mission.
Wow. You got some gardeners out there that may be watching the show. How do they get involved, and what is the most in-demand crop that they should grow if they're wondering about it?
Okay, what I've found over the years is tomatoes. I mean, you can't beat a locally grown fresh tomato. The tomatoes that come from California or Florida that were picked, 3 weeks ago and gassed to ripen don't have the same flavor as the one that was grown 2 miles away from the food pantry. So, my experience, the clients love the fresh tomatoes and okra. They go crazy for okra in the South. So
Really?
We have one whole row in our community garden that is just okra plants.
Really? Okra?
Yeah, I know. I'm from the New England. I'm not big on okra myself.
So tomatoes and okra are what you're looking for. What is there anything else that folks should
Also, we grow peppers, eggplants, squashes, cucumbers, jalapeno peppers. Those basically, potatoes. I grow small fingerling potatoes, but some places grow the sweet potatoes. really anything you would want to buy if you were at a farmer's market.
Yeah.
That's what we like to see donated to food pantries.
So what happens to the produce once it reaches the pantry, and how quickly is it distributed out?
It's distributed quickly. We donate to the In-Town Cares Food Pantry on Ponce at the Druid Hills Presbyterian Church, and I deliver on Fridays, and it's put out on Tuesday, and then again they open up on Saturday. So sometimes if we have enough, I deliver again later in the week to go on the Saturday market for the Saturday donation for the people that come, for their clients that come for the food.
Right. What's your vision 5 years out from now for this program?
Just more food, more gardeners. I would love to see, the city of Atlanta has 22 community gardens in city parks. That's where our garden was the first one ever put into a city park. They now have 22. And I would love to see this program in place at every one of those, so that some fresh produce is coming from every city park community garden to a food pantry in the city of Atlanta. I think it's important. We're on city land, so we have an obligation to give back and give back in the city.
Yeah, I understand you have a program today.
Yes, Food Well Alliance is coming down to the garden today, and they're going to film for their purposes us doing some harvesting. We'll be harvesting potatoes and some tomatoes and some beans today.
Yeah. So if I'm new to this and I want to get involved, what do you recommend for my little backyard garden?
I would recommend that you log into the Food Well Alliance website, foodwellalliance.org, and they have a map that identifies for you food pantries in your area, and you can just bring it yourself to those pantries. And I think it's really important that people understand there's no such thing as too small a contribution. 2 or 3 tomatoes and a cucumber may not be much to you, but it's a lot to the person who gets them.
Yeah.
So every little bit helps. If you're in the area of the Peachtree Road Farmers Market, you can bring it up there on Saturday, because they make a run to the In-Town Cares Food Pantry after the market closes on Saturdays.
Gotcha.
But go to the Food Well Alliance website and look at their map, and you'll find a food pantry near you that you can donate to.
All right, Kathleen, you talked about help. My thumbs are not green, they're brown, so I may need you to help me.
Glad to help you anytime.
Thanks so much, Kathleen Moriarty. Thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Not a problem at all. All right, back with my final thoughts after this, folks. We'll be back right after this. All right, we're looking at a hot day. In fact, we're looking at a hot rest of the week. In fact, we're looking at a hot weekend and a hot next week as well. In other words, folks, this wave will continue. 93 degrees for the afternoon high temperature today. Looking at 95 tomorrow. 40% chance for some showers to relieve us during the afternoon on Friday. 30% chance over the weekend, both Saturday and Sunday, with those temperatures continuing in the low to mid 90s. Mid 90s to start the work week next week as well. 95 on Monday and Tuesday. 96 by Wednesday. Oh boy. It's not going to go anywhere, folks, so get your mind right, okay? Speaking of get your mind right, we have a follow-up take. Cheryl Preheim earlier in the week talked about a rock from Mars. You know, people spend a large amount of money for the strangest things, like millions for a potato chip shaped in the form of a dragon, or a sweatband from an athlete. Pay thousands of dollars for that. But how much would you pay for a rock from Mars? How about $5.3 million? Yeah, the Martian rock known as NWA 16788 weighs more than 54 pounds, nearly 15 inches long, and is 70% larger than the next biggest piece from Mars that's been discovered right here on the Earth. In fact, the rock was discovered in 2023 in the Saharan Desert by a meteorite hunter. Whoever knew there was such a thing? Folks, I'm talking about $5.3 million for a brownish, reddish rock. That's a lot of money for a piece of Mars. And how do we know it's even from Mars? It's not like we have anything to compare it to, right? It's from Mars. So what do you do with it? Do you put it on display in your home? It's a rock, folks. A rock. Can we do better things with that much money? $5.3 million. It's a rock. Have a great day, folks. That's all we got for you today. We'll be back right after this.